I'm very happy to be joined today by Fernando Eraña from Pérez Correa González. He is partner at their venture capital practice in Mexico City and will give us a little bit of insight about what makes Mexico so great for startups and the current state of the ecosystem. Good to have you, Fernando.
Hello, Morgan. Thank you. Hello, Lucas. Thank you for having me here, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Wonderful. Would you be able to introduce yourself briefly and give us a bit of background on the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm Fernando Eraña. I've been a lawyer for almost 25 years now. My practice focuses on in M&A and finance and venture capital, and I assist clients, domestic and foreign, doing business in Mexico. I've advised everything from investment funds to entrepreneurs, and in basically every aspect of investment, in financing rounds, seed, exits, and so forth. I got my law degree in Mexico City, and I have a master's degree in Northwestern and Kellogg in Chicago, and I've worked abroad at O'Melveny and Myers in the LA office back in 2007.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fernando. I'll jump in straight away with our first question. And that's if I can ask you to describe the current economic landscape in Mexico and also highlight what sort of industries are experiencing rapid growth.
Sure. Well, in general, Mexico is in a very important moment due to the nearshoring trend that has been going on since the pandemic. The nearshoring is where manufacturing companies are relocating their operations overseas to Mexico. Most of them in the U.S., but also in from other countries, even China itself. And they're relocating to Mexico for a number of reasons, but mostly because the largest market and deepest market in the world is the United States, and it's just right across the border. And we have a free trade agreement. Mexico has a free trade agreement with the United States and Canada, which makes it the largest free trading market in the world, both by income and by population. So it's very tempting. It's very tempting for these manufacturing companies to relocate in Mexico. And I'll give you just a couple of data that will let you grasp what I'm talking about. So in 2023, Mexico surpassed China in exports to the United States. Mexico reached 475.6 billion, and that's American billion, dollars in exports. This is the first time in 20 years that Mexico surpasses China as a trading partner. So it's a major, significant milestone in our economic history. Foreign investment in Mexico has seen a steady increase, making it up to 45.9% of the GDP in 2023. So this reflects the country's favorable business and economic policies, and what makes it an attractive destination for international investors. Domestic market has grown, and the fastest growing industries are the automotive segment. Many automotive companies ensemble their cars in Mexico and then export it to the United States and Europe. But other fast-growing industries are fintech, aerospace, healthcare, pharmaceutical, services, and construction. So in general, that is what is going on here. So there's plenty of opportunities for startups to join the supply chain and make good business in the country.
Yes, that's wonderful. And there has been a lot, from what it seems as well when we were there, there's been a lot of foreign founders that have relocated to Mexico. and have moved to Mexico. Can you speak a little bit about that? What makes Mexico such a welcoming market for foreign founders?
Well, in general, Mexico has always been a very open society. A little known fact about Mexico is that it has, and not only from now, but from the past 200 years since we gained independence, there has been substantial immigration from all over the world, and especially in the 20th century. So Mexico City and other regions of Mexico have been always hubs for foreigners looking for other opportunities and looking to better their lives. So it's not surprised what it's happening now. What is probably never seen before is the amount of people coming into Mexico to do business. People, expats, founders, and all types of people coming into our country. Uh, Probably the reason is again, it's a very open society. We're accustomed to welcome people from abroad, but also Mexico City is one of the largest economic hubs in the world. It's one of the most important economic hubs in America. The largest Spanish-speaking city in the world. It's cosmopolitan, has great weather, great cuisine. So it's no wonder that a lot of people want to relocate here. To be honest, and for entrepreneurs, it gives you it gives you access to a very large market, which is Mexico itself, with almost 130 million people, all of which almost 80% have access to a mobile phone. So for tech entrepreneurs and for other entrepreneurs, it's a great place to be, and it's very well connected, close to the U.S., close to Europe. So it makes sense. It makes sense to be here.
I don't think anyone will disagree with you on the advantages of Mexico City there, especially with regards to the weather and the food and also, of course, the working environment. So my next question is, are there any specific regions within Mexico that you'd say are particularly welcome to foreign startups? And if there are specific local advantages that, as a founder, sort of thinking about starting business in Mexico, you'd want to know about?
Well, aside, probably number one would be Mexico City, but other regions that are worth and that are also great places to be are Guadalajara and Monterrey, which are the second and third largest cities in the country. Monterrey has a great university scene, has one of the largest and most prestigious university, which is Tec de Monterrey. And Guadalajara is also has a lot of a very hot entrepreneurial scene. And there is also Merida, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula, and Puebla, which is a 2-hour drive from Mexico City. They both have a great entrepreneurial scene. Merida is also a great place to live, and it's also very hot right now. A lot of people also moving here. It's very hot and very humid, but it's a great city as well, and also a very open market and very welcoming to foreigners and entrepreneurs.
That's really, really good to hear, and it definitely reflects the experience that we had in Mexico. Of course, we had our event in Mexico City, but then also worked very closely with the Tec de Monterrey on actually setting up the event. So it's great to hear them mentioned there as well. Let's get to the meat of the subject. Of course, you're working in a law firm, and I think you'd be an excellent person to give us a bit more detailed background on the actual steps legally that it takes and the considerations that one might have when deciding to move or expand to Mexico. Can you share a little bit more about that? What do you think are the main considerations that someone interested in moving to Mexico might have to have in order to be able to go there?
I think, well, probably the most important is that you will need to do some market research. whether your product makes sense, whether LATAM and Mexico are markets that make sense for your product. Once you have concluded that they are, and then there is opportunity, you're definitely going to need local partnerships, not only sound legal and accounting advice, but also potential business partners and people that can provide you with valuable insight on the local market and the resources and networks that you need to expand your business. Probably you want to think of a gradual entry, and that is part of your market research. First, you have to test the waters, see if your product makes sense, and start advancing as your product becomes successful. Of course, you need to look out for compliance and legal support. That's where we usually come in, but also as a valuable local partner. And another important factor is cultural adaptation. Even though we are, it's not only do we speak. If you're from the U.S. or from Britain, you'll need to understand at least or have a sense of Spanish and some and cultural differences that you will find in every time you go out your country. So that is another important factor. There are ways to do business that are not necessarily the same as you would do in the US or Britain or even Spain. So you have to be very aware of that. And I would say that those are the most important things to have in mind, and that will make you do a better resource allocation if you are expanding in here.
Can I ask you, Fernando, what the most common pitfalls you'd say are in setting up your business in Mexico as a legal entity? Let's say you've done your market research, you decided you want to set up some sort of operation in Mexico. What are the most common mistakes, things that you can avoid?
Probably, and I'm going to be partial with this answer, but not getting competent legal and accounting advice, especially legal advice. Many entrepreneurs tend to think or tend to see legal expenses as a luxury or as something that can be either trimmed down or even done by yourself, and that eventually leaves you takes you to make mistakes, to do things more well, basically get it wrong, probably set up the wrong type of entity, not complying with local regulations, and that eventually can increase the risk that your business is not successful because you create legal contingencies that are easily avoided. So that is probably the worst pitfall I've seen, and we see it often.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have to be careful. In terms of exactly being careful and sort of slowly looking into that, could you just give us a bit of background on what soft landing means, especially in the context of entering the Mexican market and why it might be important there?
So that is exactly what soft landing is. It's a strategy that allows a company to enter a new market and reducing the risk of falling into contingencies and do it with minimal disruption. I think that's a good definition, and it's important that you do that when you land in a new jurisdiction or in a new market, that you do it as softly as possible and with the least disruption possible, so you can focus on your business rather than on solving problems or solving contingencies that could have been easily avoided.
Could you provide practical advice for founders to achieve a successful soft landing in Mexico?
I would say the most important, and I'm going to be partial again, is to get proper legal and accounting advice. If you do that, if you get somebody that can help you navigate the cultural differences, help you comply with law and with tax provisions, your landing is gonna be it's gonna be the least disruptive, and you'll have time to focus on developing your expansion plans and have the certainty that your legal ground is kept, is there.
I think that's incredibly important to have local partnerships and
Mm-hmm.
legal guidance. And that was actually going to be my next question, but maybe we can make it slightly more specific to the work that you do at Pérez Correa González, which is also focusing on supporting new businesses. And so I'm just wondering, how do you help new businesses in navigating the complexities of the Mexican laws and regulations?
Aside from the obvious, which is legal advice, we have we have a large network of business providers, services providers, potential business partners, potential investors that can eventually be useful if you are expanding or expanding your business in Mexico. We have a good sense. I mean, we've been in the venture capital industry for almost 15 years. So we've gained a lot of experience in the market. We have a very good understanding on how the market in Mexico works, what doors, what doorbells to ring, and what doors to knock. So we are a mid-sized firm, one of the most reputable firms in Mexico. So we can always leverage our network in favor of our clients. I think that's one of the biggest assets that we can bring to the table. And again, we see entrepreneurs and we see our clients as potential business partners. We want to grow with them, so we're going to be very very supportive that that their business is successful in Mexico, and that's where we're going to be there for.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's part of the reason I think it was so great to have you involved in our event in CDMX, and certainly in events going forward, was really to sort of create that link there and provide that assistance to a lot of the startups that really need it, especially in the legal sphere. Could I just press you a little bit on that and ask what services specifically do startups in the tech sector need in terms of legal advice that you work on and in general that a startup would need to look for?
They're gonna need corporate advice and tax advice, and depending on the product that they're developing, typically regulatory advice. If it's fintech, you're going to need advice on fintech regulations in Mexico, data privacy. In general, I think it's that. There's always corporate, there's always tax, and there are always regulations that you need to comply with, whether there are telecom regulations, fintech regulations, financial regulations in general, and so forth. We're always in a position to provide all of that.
Absolutely. Could you share a success story, by the way, about that? How you helped a certain company, ideally just most relevant to our audience in the realm of tech or a startup in general, how you helped them expand and establish themselves in Mexico and what it meant for their growth and their path forward.
Probably the latest success story that we were involved with was the acquisition by Swivel of Urban in Mexico City and other regions of Mexico. Swivel is a mobility app that originated in Egypt and is currently based in Dubai, and it has expanded to many cities in Europe, and we assisted them with their expansion in Mexico, which meant their first step in Latin America. And what Swivel and Urban do is they provide corporate transportation. So what Urban did or does, because it's still operating. What Urban does is provides corporate transportation to office workers in Mexico City. So instead of having them take the subway and take public transportation, they take private vans, which routes are generated with artificial intelligence and technology, and makes it more efficient and comfortable for employees to get home and get to work, and making their commute hours more bearable and more enjoyable. That was a success story that we are particularly proud of, because it impacts on the lives of people and makes people's lives better. And it was an exciting transaction, and it felt good. It's a good story, and we're proud of sharing that.
That's very cool to hear, especially the scale of the international element of that Egyptian company based in Dubai, opening up in Mexico. It's very, very cool.
It's not your typical investor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of looking towards more long-term trends and in terms of the future for startup founders that are looking at Mexico. What would you say, if you had to think of some long-term benefits for startups that decide to expand their operations into Mexico? What would you say the main ones are to take advantage of?
If you're looking to tap the Spanish-speaking market, which is 400 million people strong, you definitely need to be in Mexico. No matter what you do, you will eventually run into Mexico. So the benefit of being in Mexico is that we are a type of gateway, both to as being the largest Spanish speaking country in the world. We're a gateway to Latin America, and we can also be a gateway to the US. If you are successful in Mexico, it is very probable that you'll be successful elsewhere in LATAM. We're a good place to test the waters, and again, we're a country that is very conveniently located, that offers a lot of advantages from a free trade perspective. So the long term is that it will help you to know the Spanish speaking market.
Absolutely. And so just sort of to conclude a little about this and looking ahead into the future, what do you think are the main trends at the moment in terms of the legal and economic landscape in Mexico? And how can founders planning to make use of these trends best prepare themselves?
I think the greatest trend is technology. So everything that has to do with technology, whether it's fintech, travel tech, health tech, insurance tech, everything, anything that is improved with technology has a great chance. It's very fashionable in Mexico, and it will bring attention from everyone, and again, it's a market with almost 120 million people that have access to a mobile phone. So you definitely want to be here if you're doing tech. It's a great market, and it offers a lot of possibilities just for the sheer size.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Fernando. I'm conscious of the time, which is a shame because I think there's going to be a lot of interest suddenly, and perhaps we can elaborate more on some of these trends in another podcast. Really,
Sure.
really grateful for your time on this podcast, and to have been joined by you, and to be able to at least offer founders in our community and sort of wider network an insight into what starting a business in Mexico might look like. I know that there's a lot of interest, and you mentioned on the nearshoring trend there as well. It's massive, and it's only going to get bigger. And we've run quite a few events, but there are so many founders that are really looking to capitalize on that and take advantage of that. And I think this will be a really important insight into the challenges, but also the opportunities of what starting a business is like in Mexico. And certainly we'll offer them an idea of who to turn to for the for the crucial legal advice in starting up.
Thank
So,
you.
Fernando, it's been a pleasure
Thank you.
to have you. Thank you once again for joining us. And we look forward to continuing the discussion further in future episodes.
Likewise, thank you for having me.